if you are a person who, is standing in front of the fridge and it's 6 o'clock and we're unsure what we're going to do and really hungry and you've tried meal planning before and it just hasn't been your jam, then you are going to want to listen today on how we are going to talk about this. So we're going to dig a little bit into why meal planning is hard, why maybe we don't like it, why sometimes it fails, and then what we can do about that for people who don't like meal planning. So hello and welcome back to another episode of A Plate Full of Insights on Revive Radio. I am Andrea Shekel. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm going to be your host today on maybe what's going to seem like an interesting topic coming from who we have on today. We've got a dietitian and we have a chef who is joining us, and we are talking today on meal planning for people who hate meal planning. We are putting that out in the universe. We know that that's a reason why people come to see us, and we want to have a great conversation about that. So if you are a person who, is standing in front of the fridge and it's 6 o'clock and we're unsure what we're going to do and really hungry and you've tried meal planning before and it just hasn't been your jam, then you are going to want to listen today on how we are going to talk about this. So we're going to dig a little bit into why meal planning is hard, why maybe we don't like it, why sometimes it fails, and then what we can do about that for people who don't like meal planning. So I am so honored today to be joined with our teammates here who have been also on other podcasts. So make sure if this is your first time, thanks for joining us. If it's not, thanks for coming back. So today I am joined by our chef on our team as well as one of our dietitians. So I'm going to get both of you to introduce and then we're going to hop into this topic.
Well, my name is Kelsey Hagen. I'm one of the registered dietitians, and I am a meal planner hater, but I work really hard at it.
And I'm Lisa, one of the chefs on the team, and I have a love-hate relationship with meal planning. So it is something I love to talk about, and it's definitely a work in progress for me as well, all the time.
I love that we are already going into the honesty of this. Even as healthcare professionals, even that we do this, it's a complicated relationship around it. And I think we hear that from clients, including ourselves too. So let's just get right into it. Let's just put this out there. Why do each of you think that people really don't resonate with meal planning advice? Like, what is it that you think that either turns them off or they I guess we can use that word hate. Yeah. Tell me a little bit each about why we think that that's something that people are experiencing.
I think there's there can be lots of different reasons why people don't enjoy meal planning. I think probably maybe my top three is one, I don't know if it's a skill that we're actually ever really taught, unless maybe our parents taught it when we were growing up. So it's kind of a foreign skill. And that can always be scary when you're trying to learn something new and you're not necessarily sure how to go about it. But we feel like because we all eat, we should understand how to do these things. I think another one too is like there's a lot of societal pressures of it should be done maybe this way or what it looks like, or that it should be your entire weekend prepping and preparing for the week so that you can be very productive all week. And I think then that just leads to feelings of like overwhelmed. It's too much decision. It's too much it's too much to think about. That decision fatigue is such a real thing when it comes to dinner. And then I think that like realization as an adult of I now have to plan dinner every night of my life. And like especially, and I don't think it's something I ever thought about when I had kids. Like I never really actually thought about the fact that I would have to plan dinner every single night for my family, and it's exhausting and it's overwhelming, and sometimes I don't want to do it.
I love that, Kelsey. I resonate with all of those things. So, Lisa, what about for you? What do you think, like coming from the chef perspective of this? Yeah, what is it about meal planning?
I mean, I think a lot of people see it as drudgery, like just another chore to add. Like we already have so many chores and responsibilities that we have to do outside of our jobs. that we just have on our lists. And that's just one more thing. And it sounds very time consuming. It sounds like kind of like homework. Like you think of yourself sitting down and writing on a paper for hours and hours. And it's like, who wants to do that? Like, that doesn't sound sexy at all. So that's boring. Um, and just like lots of people don't like cooking, let's be honest. Like, I think that's just cooking is seen as another chore, and some people love cooking. Obviously, I'm one of those people, but there's some people who just, it's just not their jam. And I respect that. And so the idea of meal planning is like, okay, now I already don't like cooking. This is already something that doesn't bring me joy and is something I just need to do. And now you're telling me I have to spend more time doing homework and chores around this and sitting down and like thinking about it. Like that's just adding a whole other layer to my dislike of being in the kitchen and cooking. So I think that those are the top ones that come to mind for me.
I think those are really good words to use, Lisa, like chore, homework. It is something, if we're doing it mindfully, we do have to almost think about that, right? As a task or a to do or a chore. So I'm going to put this out. We're going to kind of, both of you kind of brought out like, yeah, the challenges that come with meal planning. So maybe let's try to break this down for some of these people who might not like it, but we still see benefit of it, which we've talked on lots of podcasts before, right? We know the benefits of doing it. We hear it a lot, why we should be doing it. Um, but how would you say people could start meal planning or build a meal plan without it either feeling like a chore or feeling like homework? Like, and to Kelsey, like, right? Like, how do I not take a whole day of doing this? What would you say to those people?
I think, first of all, accept that is going to be unique and different to you. That you don't have to look at Pinterest or, videos and stuff like that that feel overwhelming. Take a moment to kind of reflect on what maybe has worked for you in the past, right? And start small, right? So for myself, one of my like absolute bare minimums that I'll do, even if I have no plan, is I will at least make a vegetable tray and have that ready to go in the fridge, only because regardless of what we do, I can pull it out to any meal and create balance. So it makes my week that much easier. If we order in pizza, I can pull out the veggie tray and we can snack on it while we're waiting for pizza and while the pizza or with our pizza. So then we're able to still have, a balanced meal that's going to provide energy and get some fiber and some extra color in there, and just, feel full and satisfied versus like tired and groggy because I was too hungry and maybe overate my pizza. Does that make sense? So I think like when I'm working with clients on this, the first thing that we do is we book an appointment each week with yourself at a time that works best for you to actually give yourself time to plan. Because what my clients have realized is when they set aside that time to plan, they're way more successful. But they have to treat it as like it's an appointment. It has to happen. If it needs to get rescheduled, it has to get rescheduled that week. Right. So because I don't always love meal planning, mine is Thursday afternoon. I do it before I pick up the kids. I grab a coffee and I kind of try and make it an enjoyable experience so that I will make time for it versus trying to fit it in on like Sunday night, if that makes sense. And then while I'm doing that, that's where I might utilize some tools to help make it easier. Like I might have my click and collect order going at that time. So then I'm planning and picking up some things that I need to kind of execute that plan.
All right. Lisa, how would you go about that one?
I mean, I echo a lot of what Kelsey has already said. And I guess I would add to kind of let go of this idea of being of perfection around it too. I think that a lot of the perception is like, I need to plan breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks every single day. And that sounds overwhelming. Even to me, I don't plan I do meal planning every week. I do the same thing Thursday afternoons. That's the time that feels the least hectic for me. And is more enjoyable, but like same like for I don't plan out all my meals. That would be too much for me. So I think starting from a place like from a small place, and again what works for you. So if there's meals that you already love that you like are in your regular rotation, like save those somewhere or write them down as like these are some of my go-tos, and that just start there even as a meal plan. Like if you're just starting out, like, oh, there's this one pasta dish that I make once a month all regularly that I love. Okay, put that on your the first meal plan you ever try doing. Actually write it down on a schedule of like, okay, I know I love this pasta dish, put it on Saturday. I'll make a larger batch of it and I'll have leftovers of it on Tuesday. That's already 2 meals planned, and it's something you like, takes the stress right out already. Like, you already feel less overwhelmed because that's 2 meals gone out of your meal plan. You can write down the groceries you need for that, and then you're kind of set. So, and then it just gets easier and easier as you go, because if you start experimenting with more recipes, like what I've been doing is I, try new recipes all the time. And if there's one that's like an undisputable winner that we just loved, I save that one. Like, I write it down or I bookmark it or whatever. So that's part of my repertoire. And my repertoire has just been growing and growing and growing of like, I know these are like 100% chance I want to repeat these. If they're like, it was okay, I don't put that on the list. It's always like, this is like a 100% chance I want to make this again. And so that just makes meal planning easier down the road, because I have this list of, say, 100 recipes now or more, that I've tested out, that I love, and I know I want to repeat. So that takes all the thinking and guesswork out of it. It's like, I can just pick from the list. I already know I like this one. I've done this one before. It's been a while since I've made it. Put it back on the list. So that would be like kind of a place to start, is what do you already like? What's something you've done before? And just go there. So you're not, spending hours on Pinterest and like looking through cookbooks and not knowing where to start.
That's such a great point, Lisa. And one of the things too, like I love that we both plan the same day. I always think that's really, now I'm going to think about you this Thursday when I'm planning. Like, I wonder what Lisa's planning. Maybe we should swap meal plans, and that's how we can get more ideas. Um, but I think you made it like such a good point. Like, it's always really important when you are booking that appointment to kind of reflect on how the last week went, so that you can kind of know, okay, this was a really quick meal for me to make. So my confidence is going to be a little bit higher. So that's a good one to keep on my list. And we do a similar thing. I actually have like a stack of cue cards where we've written out complete balanced meals on them. And then when I'm having a really hard time meal planning, I have 3 kids. So each of them gets to pick a cue card. And yes, my 3-year-old can't read yet, but she just picks a random one. And then my husband picks one. So that's 4 meals planned. One of the things I do once a week is on Thursdays, it has to be a low energy night for me. I just don't have the mental capacity to plan or cook. So Thursdays is always a clean out the fridge night. So that's 5 nights for us. And then Sunday nights are the nights that I prefer to order in, because I feel like it's more of like a relaxing evening then. So then that's 6 nights. And then the last meal, I usually just try and plan something that will use up some of the leftovers from the other meals that my family has picked. So, relying on the people in your household too, to maybe help reduce some of that decision fatigue on what we should be making, can be really, really helpful too. And get to know your rhythm. Like, I have the most amount of energy Monday through Wednesday to kind of cook. And then, like I said, Thursday for me has to be a low energy night. And then Friday, Saturday, I can kind of, depending upon what we've got going on for the weekend, that might be a little bit more energy. It might be a little bit less energy. And then typically for us, Sundays is like the night that we'll order in or go out for dinner, just because it makes it feel like I've had a bit of a weekend.
These are all really, really good things that are coming through from both of you. One thing I want to talk about, and this is something that I talk to my clients about, so we'll see kind of what you both, or what your responses are to people on it, is because I truly believe that people can wing this. Like, we don't also have to sit down and plan it. There are strategies for those people who are better off thinking on their feet. Like, we do have people who actually thrive in that space. They don't want to plan it out. They want the flexibility, the freedom, for that. And I've seen this term, like, smart winging it. And I know, Kelsey, just before we hopped on, we were kind of alluding to that of, what would you tell these people who actually just really want to wing it but still be successful? Like, how do we help those people? What could we say?
Well, and I think it's such a good conversation that I love to have, because everyone's brain works differently. And it's really helpful to understand that the way that you go about doing things needs to work for you. And that gives us more confidence to be able to say, like, no, that won't work for me. Like, I see photos, for example, of like these perfectly curated containers of all the same food, like lined up in beautiful photos. To me, that is so overwhelming. I can't even imagine doing something like that. Right. And so, actually last week or a couple weeks ago, I was working with a client and I loved what she said. She's identified that she's more of a scavenger. So she likes to scavenge her dinners together. But because we work on that plate diagram of like half vegetables, quarter protein, quarter starch, and some fats, she just has that little checklist and she scavenges her environment. So she's got some leftovers, she'll do that, and then she'll pair it with maybe a bag salad to get that balance in there too. So what we kind of had done is we've come up a list of like easy to make starches or grains, easy to keep on hand proteins, and then like some easy to have on hand vegetables. Right. So, for example, that might be like microwavable rice, or it might be bread or wraps, and then it might be like bag salad or a veggie tray, and it might be like cans of tuna or cans of chicken, edamame beans, black beans, smoked tofu is one of my favorites right now. And then just by having those in the environment, you can kind of pull together a balanced meal, right? I'm also at this stage of my life, I do find it easier to have like individually packaged stuff to make it easier to grab and go. So like I love to have individual hummus with some turkey pepperoni sticks and some veggies and some pretzels. Right? That works really well. My kids love that for dinner. And it just takes the pressure off a little bit. So I always kind of focus on balance versus perfection. And the reason I focus on balance, or I focus on meals that help me to feel energized and satisfied, is a big one.
Lisa, over to you. What do you think about the smart winging? How would you approach that?
I mean, I don't have too much to add from what Kelsey just said because I was going to kind of say the same things. I guess I mean, you can do kind of like a rough plan if you want to as well and sort of wing it within that rough plan. So if it's sort of like, I want something Italian on Thursdays, I don't really know what yet, but you can kind of have a rough idea in your head of like a theme, maybe a rough theme, but you don't have to necessarily look up specific recipes and be that detailed about it. So it could just be like, I know I'll make like a pasta maybe, or maybe a pizza or something, like depending on what you have around, or it might help shape what you put on your grocery list. Like, oh, just like I'm going to look for certain ingredients that would maybe fit like an Italian theme. Oh, I'll pick up some tortellini because that was on sale, whatever. So that can kind of like help be like not really planning, but like you're still winging it, but you still have something in your brain at least. And I also love the idea of like kind of charcuterie meals where it's like, yeah, you have all these different items around that are like offering all the different food groups, and people can kind of build their own plates off of it, and that's like another good way to clean out the fridge too. So maybe if you even planned one meal, let's say you made a big meal on Saturday, had leftovers someday during the week, and then you bought a bunch of random groceries at the store, just whatever grabbed your attention or was on sale or whatever, a way to use those things up, make a charcuterie plate with all these different things, just bits and bobs of like leftover protein that you've cooked earlier in the week, some veggies, some fruits, whatever that you have that needs to kind of get used up. Soups are another great one that are great, like winging it meal. It's pretty hard to screw up a soup. You can kind of just throw in whatever you need to use up. So there's definitely like meals that lend themselves well to that winging it kind of vibe.
When I I love that. I'm always so scared to make soups, but now I'm gonna try and have more confidence with them. But and I think it is really good for the people who do like to wing it. Like part of the reason we started doing a clean out the fridge night is my husband is incredible at opening the fridge and being able to make something delicious out of what he sees. I am not that way. I need a plan. And so part of the reason we started the clean out the fridge night was to give our kids that ability and skill set. And so like we turn it into a bit of a cooking competition. We all are eating different things, but we're teaching the skills of like using what you have, not letting anything go to waste, being creative. And it's kind of fun to see what unfolds from it. So you don't necessarily always have to have a lot of structure at your meals. I think the most important thing is always just taking that moment to reflect of like, did I like this? Was it satisfying? Would I do it again? What might I do differently next time?
Kelsey, I think you speak to a really big piece that often is not part of the conversation that people think about with meal planning is the creativity piece. Like it is a form of trying something new, being creative of whatever that looks like. It also speaks to this kind of like smart winging of letting go of perceived expectations because it then opens the doors for a lot of things of, yeah, you know what? A meal can look like a forage in your pantry forest. Like it can, and that's okay. And that that is what works for you, and that means that should work, and that expectation of it needs to look like a certain way can be a big reliever for people of that's okay. It also can give that freedom, especially for those people that you hear about meal planning of like, you know what, they don't like leftovers. They don't want repeat stuff. They don't, what happens if comes Thursday, they don't want what they had planned, right? It allows that it's okay also to move away from that or to that break that plan if it doesn't suit you or if it doesn't serve you well on that day for whatever reason, right? Energy wise, tired, busyness, something pops up in the schedule. It's not a be all of end all. Break it, give yourself permission to break it, and that can reduce a lot of stress, I find.
Well, and like on those nights, like the clean out the fridge nights in particular, those are because I said like Thursdays for me, I find I'm very like mentally tapped. I just can't make any decisions. And so a lot of times, like my kids will have fun making something and I will just have a smoothie, right? Because it's just easier to throw it all in the blender and drink it because I know I need to nourish my body, but I'm just like mentally tapped out. So I think it's helpful to understand too that like balance can come in many different forms, or meals can come in like many different forms, and not every meal has to be perfectly balanced. Um, but we do want to make sure that we're looking at ways that you can nourish your body that make you feel good, and that's going to look different for every single person.
Okay. Well, let's move on to this big piece because we know as clinicians that people have tried meal planning. That's not sometimes not a new concept. They've tried it, they've tried different things, they've tried different concepts of it, and maybe have felt not successful with it. So, what would you say to those people who have, tried and tried it and not felt successful? What would we say to them?
Yeah, I'm trying to formulate my thoughts on that. I mean, I guess I would ask them to evaluate what's not working with it first and ask those questions like, what is it that you're not, is it just that you're not enjoying it? Is it taking too much time? Like find out exactly where the obstacle is lying for you, or that there's multiple things, but what's the top thing that's really not working for you? Is it you planned the meals and you hated every single one that you made, or your family didn't like any of it, or it took too much time? I don't know what it might be. And maybe it's about just shifting what you're doing in your meal planning. Maybe it's about finding more one pan meals where you can throw stuff in the pan instead of spending all of your night on a weeknight chopping vegetables and a recipe that says it's half an hour and ends up taking an hour and a half instead, even for skilled people, which I find is actually quite common. And that can be frustrating because you have an expectation here and then the reality is different, and that can just completely shake your whole experience around meal planning and make you just not want to repeat it because it was like, well, I tried this, I thought it was going to be a half an hour meal, and save me a bunch of time, and it ended up taking me way more time, and I was stressed out because I was trying to read the recipe, I was running around the kitchen, the pot was boiling on the stove, my kids needed me, and so that's not a good experience. So I can understand how that would maybe scare you off of meal planning. So maybe it would be about like, okay, let me scale back now, let me find a recipe where I can literally just throw everything into the slow cooker and turn it on in the morning. Open a can of tomatoes, a can of beans, throw in some chicken breast, whatever, right? And you just turn it on and then that's done. You come home and it's ready. Or like whatever, pressure cooker, any of those types of things, soups or stir fries, any of those things, you can just throw things in a pan. That would be a good starting point because I think you want to get to a place where you're at least not hating the process of whatever you're making for your meals, because of course you're not going to want to keep trying it if your experience so far has been unenjoyable. We don't typically as humans like to repeat experiences that were horrible. So if you can kind of try to turn some of that around and like get into a mindset of like more relaxation, and again looking at your week too, like I do pickleball lessons on Tuesdays from 6 till 7 p.m., which is dinner time. So I'm not planning a meal where I come home at 7 and I'm just starting a meal that night. That's always leftovers or like a whatever meal, like a free for all kind of meal where it's like, okay, I'm just making pierogies from the freezer, whatever. So just being mindful of that stuff. Don't choose the recipe, even if it says it's half an hour for a night you're driving your kids to soccer and you're trying to do laundry and whatever else you have going on. your brain is not going to be in that right space right away. You're going to be in a stressed out mood, and that's just going to affect your overall experience in the kitchen. And then it's just going to be a negative feedback loop. Okay, well, I hate it. And now I hate meal planning. I'm not going to do it anymore. So just kind of like reflecting, and maybe even doing some reflections at the end of the day and writing like what went well, what didn't, what don't I like, how can I tweak things to maybe make this more enjoyable and give it a second chance. That's kind of what comes to mind for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I think the key there too is it's to start small, right? So like you were saying, Lisa, if you don't have time to cook that night, don't expect yourself to cook that night. That's just setting yourself up for failure. But that on the flip side, if maybe you're not as confident in the kitchen, pick one night a week where you actually have the time to cook, where you can read through the recipe, where you can kind of work through it and be prepared. So if you've got lots of people in your household, maybe you pick a night where somebody else can help manage kids if that's in your environment, or maybe you pick a night of the week where it's easiest for you to focus, right? So maybe for some people that might be a Monday night or it might be a Friday night, right? But trying to turn it into an enjoyable experience. The other thing that I kind of encourage my clients to do too is think of the part of the meal that you struggle with the most. Like, do you struggle with getting the protein on the plate? Do you struggle with getting the grains on the plate or the starches? Or do you struggle with getting like the vegetables? And maybe start there and make that one piece easier, right? So if it's the protein, maybe we do lean in and get a rotisserie chicken and, pull the skin off, and then we maybe use it a couple times throughout that night, right? Or maybe if it's the vegetables, maybe we do pick up the bag salads or the coleslaws or the frozen vegetables and stuff that make it a little bit easier to throw into those like one pan meals, right? So I think part of it too is understanding that even meal planning, it's not necessarily you have to plan every single meal, but start with maybe the part that you're wanting to increase. And then so if, okay, bag salads go well, now maybe I'm going to branch out and maybe I'm going to try a salad recipe, right? And then maybe I get more confidence in building a good salad. Maybe I'm going to try a different salad dressing recipe, right? Now maybe I'm going to do more of a complete salad meal, right? And just kind of sticking with like what you enjoy and slowly adding to it. Or starting with a meal that you feel comfortable with and maybe just adding one new element to it. Like if you're really good at stir fries, maybe that's the time that maybe we try in a different protein source, right? Like maybe this time, instead of using chicken, because I'm really comfortable with that, maybe I'm going to use firm tofu.
Both of you have hit on themes that on other podcasts we've also kind of hit on these, right? The importance of reflecting. We don't know where we are. We don't know where we're trying to go if we don't even pause and think about that. As well as we don't have to change everything. We can do small things that, yeah, are as simple as like, what even meal am I trying to solve for? So coming back to the why are we doing this in the first place and what's best going to serve or meet your needs that you're looking for. So I love that both of you brought that together because that's a reoccurring theme on all of our pieces, and it can apply right back to meal planning, which I love. So as we wrap these next kind of two questions, and Kelsey, you are just, I love when you talk about this aspect. So I'm going to give this to you first, and then Lisa can kind of think about it. But, what if we took out the concept of planning? Like, what if we were to reword meal planning into something that, I don't know, changes our mindset on it or changes that experience? And I know you talk a lot about clients of different ways. So maybe start there. Yeah. How do we just change this whole mindset of this chore, this homework into something that's a little bit more meaningful?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, as you're saying that, a session jumps to mind, and this happened like over 8 years ago now. And this session is so vividly ingrained in my brain because it had such a big impact on me. And I think this is why I love that privilege of working with people, because they will forever change the way you see things. But a client of mine said that for her, self care is doing the things she doesn't want to do in the moment, but make her a better human being. So for her, meal planning is self care. She never wants to do it, but it always makes her a better human being because her weeks are less stressful and they're more enjoyable. And then for her, it was a trickle down effect because it helped to support her training routine. It helped to support her relationships. She just felt happier and calmer. So that was the important piece. And I just loved that because there's a lot of things that come to our health that we don't want to do in the moment. And it's exhausting and it's tiring, but we do it because it makes us a better human being. Right. And so one for me, and I know I brought it up already, is like that veggie tray. I never want to make it. I'm always swearing in my head when I have to make it. And to be fair, I've now pawned it off. It's my children's responsibility. They have to pick out the vegetables, they have to wash them, they have to get them in there. But I do it because it makes the rest of my week so much easier, especially that like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, when my energy levels are a lot lower when it comes to like preparing meals or planning meals. So that's like my one thing that I will do if I do nothing else, because it makes me a better human being because I'm a more calm and patient mom. And that's something that's important to me right now at this stage of my life.
Oof, self-care. We have talked a lot about that. That's another theme. I love that, Kelsey. It's honestly also what I talk to my clients about as well, of even though it's a complicated relationship, meal planning and doing that, right? You've heard from both of us. We've all of us, right? Like it's not always a love, love, love doing it, but the doing it actually has a lot of benefit in the end with whatever you're trying to solve. So Lisa, you're next to take this on. How do we change our mindset?
I mean, you guys both nailed it. That's kind of what I was going to say too. Like this self-care piece and just seeing it as a like how can I make future me happier is a really big mindset shift for me. Just thinking through, like, maybe I don't want to do this right now, but I know I'm going to thank myself later if I do this. And that's what, like, my love hate relationship with meal planning is kind of boils down to is like, I love meal planning because of the way it makes me feel for 90% of my week. I don't love doing it. So the hate part is like maybe the hour that I have to set aside and actually do the physical work. Some weeks I feel more creative than others too. Like sometimes the meal plan comes together like beautifully. And then other weeks it's like, I don't want to do this. I'm so tired. My brain is full. So it's like the ebbs and flows of life too. But yeah, like in the moment, maybe I'm not super jazzed about doing it, but then like 90% of the week, I'm like thanking myself every single day that I did do this. And so that's just that putting in that investment up front to like help yourself in the future and support yourself. And yeah, seeing it as that self-care piece, I think is a really huge reframe.
Yeah. And learning what that self care for nutrition looks like for you, right? Like I have some clients where their only goal is to get as many different colors in their day. So that's what they focus on, is how many different colors can I get? For myself, when I'm thinking about kind of meal planning, if I don't have the energy to plan something, I might just, okay, I'm going to plan 2 proteins, 2 grains and starches, and 2 vegetables, because then I know I can kind of pull together some meals based on those things. So it makes it a little bit easier to be like, Kate, here's my two, here's my two, here's my two. I'm just going to get it in the fridge and then we'll be able to pull stuff together. So that would probably play into that smart winging it piece that you were talking about, Andrea. But I think it is important to understand that like meal planning is a skill and it takes time. It takes so much time to develop, and it's going to evolve and it's going to change as your life changes, and at different phases of life. And that's totally okay. And so if you're finding you're feeling really frustrated too, about like, oh, I used to do it this way and it's just not working because maybe my living situation is very different now, that's part of the process. And there can be a lot of frustration with that. And there can also be a lot of like learning and personal growth with that too. Right. And I think that's one of the things that I really love working with people is everyone is so different. And I can like confidently say not a single one of my clients preps or plans the same. It's all different. It's on different days of the week. How they do it, how it works is all very different. I'm grateful that I get to learn from them and see what works for them because that builds my skill set with working with people. But we're always here to help support, and whether that's, one-on-one services or we have group classes or corporate classes, or webcasts or podcasts or like self-paced classes or blogs, we have tons of different resources to kind of help support individuals with what works best for them. And I think that's kind of the fun part is like figuring out, okay, what's going to be the right path for this individual to help support them. And I think, the farther I get in my career, as much as I love being a dietitian, I've realized my true like passion in life is reducing the mental load that comes with nutrition. And so it's not always about the food, but sometimes it's that plan or that approach to help reduce that mental load and finding what are those key little things I need to do to make my week be a little bit easier, right? Because we have lots on our plate. Like every one of my clients, I'm just like blown away with how much they're managing, or how much responsibility is on their shoulders. So if we can take off some of that mental load and make things a little bit easier, I'm always so grateful to be a part of that journey and kind of get to see that moment where their eyes light up and they're like, this is what works for me.
That mental load is a huge one, Kelsey, and I think, actually, we might have to have another podcast specifically on that topic because the mental load of just lifestyle change in particular, right? Not even just nutrition. That bleeds over into other areas, right? That people are trying to navigate on top of a very busy life potentially. So how I want to wrap up today, I know Lisa and I talk about this, like we could talk about meal planning forever. Like really, there's like so many different things, ways we can go down, paths we can go down. So I really appreciated this conversation today on taking it at a different level. So kind of how I want to leave our listeners today. I mean, the biggest part, I'm always upfront with my clients of how real we are, right? Like we are real. As you've heard all of us today kind of speak to that piece. So I want to hear from each of you. What is the one go-to meal that you go to when you're like, I'm done, I'm over it? Like, what is that meal for you?
I was just going to say, one of my clients phrased it as like, what's your little black dress recipe for dinner? I love that. Yeah. Now, why don't you go, Andrea? What's yours?
Oh my gosh, lately, like I'm over it is honestly a tuna bun. Like, and then I forget how much I actually love that. And I didn't, because we're just in a stage of like, holy smokes, like everything is falling over at supper time. So, like, tuna buns. And lately, my kids who help with the meal plans are like, oh, mom, must be a busy night. Tuna buns are on that schedule. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, how do you feel about that? They love it. So sometimes, like, those like I'm over it meals actually sometimes are the best ones, right? I don't know. So I'm in a tuna bun phase if I can't think about anything else. So that's where I'm at.
I think I have two. Mine plays along with you. We've been doing make your own sandwich night because then you can like play around with like buns or wraps and have fun getting something different. And then we make two, one for lunch and one for dinner. And then yeah, so that's my like I'm over at night. We're making sandwiches, and then my other one is I just love like a veggie cheese scramble with some toast. Super quick.
That was my second one for sure. Yeah. Lisa.
Oh, this one's impossible for me because I almost never, like, don't feel like cooking, but it does happen, believe it or not. Um, oh, I have, like, a dump and go recipe that I just always, like, go to where it's, like, a rice and sausage and peppers and celery kinda mixture, like a Creole kinda thing, but, like, literally you just put everything in the pot and turn it on, kind of a thing. So, but maybe that still counts as cooking. I don't know. So that maybe that's sort of like too too advanced. Pierogies are one that I fall back on a lot. And then like whatever protein. Usually it's like a quick like kubasa sausage and some veggies, something that's like really easy. Um, Scrambled eggs, yeah, is another kinda quick and easy. Oh, pita pizzas is another one. Like, if I have pitas and that's another, like, kinda build your own, like, clean out the fridge, throw some tomato sauce on whatever veggies you have that just, like, are lying around, whatever proteins, and then you can kinda make your own individual pizzas that way, and it's done in 5 minutes, so that's another kinda quick one.
Yeah, we've been doing that a lot with like naan bread. Works really well on the barbecue. Yeah, but like I would say my like top three clean out the fridge nights are pita pizzas or like well naan bread pizzas, fried rice, and then nachos.
Yeah, forget nachos can turn into a balanced meal quick. See, this is how we can talk about meal planning, honestly, all day long for that. So I want to thank you all for joining me today and having this awesome conversation around that. For those who listened, thanks for tuning in. We also want to hear from you. These are the stuff that we talk about are coming from you, from comments, from people that we work with. So if there's something you're like, yeah, you know what, meal planning, let's dive more into this, or you know what, I'm curious about this, or we want to hear from you. So please leave comments, information. If you found this helpful or you know somebody who would find this helpful, please share with this kind of stuff. But I appreciate everybody for joining me today and look forward to our next upcoming webcast. podcast. My goodness, podcast. Another plate full of insights. So have a great rest of your day.